Welcome to Hancock's VMware Half Hour. And welcome back to another Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Again, Sunday the something of December, 7th of December. And I'm a little bit wet, so I do apologise because I've been out covering an old shed with a tarpaulin, for those of you that don't know what a tarp is. The shed's failed, the roof's failed. Water is hissing in, and so I needed to cover it quickly. Anyway, so I'm back. This is going to be part 8 of our homebrew slow burn DIY UnRAID NAS series. So today, in today's video, and you're not going to see me with these fat fingers delving inside the Intel NUC 11 Extreme. I think we've done enough of that. But what I'm going to do today, we're just going to touch roughly on what is UnRAID, what UnRAID does, how I've set up UnRAID at the moment, and what we're doing and where we want to sort of kind of get to. As you have already seen in the last couple of parts, where I actually basically came clean and Samantha said that yes, I'm running VMware vSphere Hypervisor ESXi 8 nested on UnRAID, and we're running Windows 11 on UnRAID, which I showed you in the last part. And in the first part, you actually basically saw me install 2 XPG 512 gig NVMe's in our Intel NUC. Now, in UnRAID, as it sort of kind of suggests, UnRAID by name, UnRAID by nature, it has a very clever ability to use any size disks to create an array where you can have 1 parity or 2 parity disks. So providing that your parity disks are the largest in your UnRAID, then you can't exceed those sizes. So in my temporary array that I have here at the moment of 9 terabyte, I've got a handful of disks. I'll show you them here now. I've got 2 parity disks, parity 1 and parity 2. Parity is a 4 terabyte disk and parity 2 is a 3 terabyte disk. So the largest single disk that I can use in the array at the moment is 4 terabyte because it cannot exceed the size of a parity disk. So those are my parity disks. So because I've got 2 parity disks, I effectively can lose up to 2 spinning disks, spinning rust in the array. So I've got 4 disks in the array, 2 of which are parity. So I've got 2 terabytes, 3 2 terabytes and a 3 terabyte disk and 2 disks for parity. So that's my array. And starting with UnRAID, as it suggests, when you're installing it on your USB flash drive, to start the array, you need to have two things. You need to have an array. Now that array could be an array of a single disk or an UnRAID of a single disk, and you need to have a cache, again, which you can have a cache of a single disk, or you could have a cache which is a mirror. So how we've currently got our pool devices set up, we have a cache of 1 disk. So there is no resilience there because we've just got a cache of 1 disk, and that's using our XPG 512 gigabyte NVMe. And then we've got an array of 6 devices. Now, where I want to get to with our UnRAID is in the future, I want to get to an array of 6 devices. And those devices will be 18, 22 or 24 terabyte. That's our spinning rust. Not quite decided yet whether I'm going to pick 18 terabyte, 20 or 24, but they'll be Toshiba Enterprise spinning rust. So what we've currently got really is scratch temp. That's experimental. We'll replace those as we go through this series. As I said, this is slow burn and it's going to be long. And as for our cache, well, you actually basically saw that we've got a handsome amount of Samsung 990 Pro PCIe 4 NVMe M.2 SSDs. Now, you've seen me install 2 of those already in our Intel NUC. Our Intel NUC has only got space for 4 NVMe. It's only got 4 NVMe slots, 2 of which are PCIe 3. 2 of them are Gen 4. The other thing I've got on my desk here, which I'm also wanting to try, and I've used this in I used this in the Minis Forum MS-A2. We've got a number of Samsung PM9A3 2.5 inch 3.84 terabyte, and these are NVMe U.2 discs as well. Now, they fit quite easily in a Minis Forum MS-A2, and you may have almost seen me use one of them. Just excuse me, I'm away from the mic. I'm just going to show you something if you can see this thing. Okay, back near the mic. So the other thing we want to experiment with is obviously the Samsung 990 Pros. They're consumer NVMe's. The NVMe U.2 devices that we got, they are enterprise devices. So one of the things that I'm going to look at in the future, again in another video, we'll come to it, is the performance difference between consumer 990 Pros and our enterprise NVMe. And I've got this thing that I've sort of kind of really cobbled together homebrew style. I wouldn't really normally use this in the enterprise or in the data center, but effectively what it is, you might not be able to see this easily, but we'll have a play with this later. This is a NVMe slot to a U.2 connector. I've then managed to find a SATA to Molex power supply connector, and I've then managed to find a PCIe graphics card adapter to give me 5 and 12 volts. So I'm hoping with that snaky thing, spidery thing, and a bit of Velcro, we might be able to basically get our NVMe working inside our Intel NUC. All experimentation, because as I said at the beginning, really, what I'm really wanting to do is to really get the best performance out of this Intel NUC. So we'll compare that against mirrored NVMe 4 terabytes cache versus a single NVMe 4 terabyte versus an enterprise U.2 device, which is going to actually perform better. Anyway, so jumping back to cache, so what we'll do in the future as well, when we've got these 4 devices installed in our NUC. Now, we've already got 2 of them installed, and currently they're passed through to Windows 11, and that was basically to check out to see whether or not that they were genuine. And it's interesting because Samsung released a new version of the Samsung Magician Wizard thing, and now it actually basically comes up and says they're authenticated. And there were some new firmware versions that came out for the 990 Pro as well. So I'm going to bob them in, and we're going to get them updated as well. So currently, as it stands, our Intel NUC has got 2 Samsung NVMe 990 Pros, and it's got 2 XPG X11 Pros 512 gig. So what I'm going to do in this video, because we are already using UnRAID, I wouldn't really say that it's in production state. It's in a state of change. But now that I'm sort of kind of using it, not really in anger, I don't really want to rebuild it from scratch. So the plan is, what we're going to do, and I'm hoping that this is kind of going to work, we're going to replace the XPG GameX sticks with our Samsung NVMe sticks. But I'm going to do that in a mechanism so that we don't really have to reformat anything. And roughly the procedure is going to be, I'm going to shut down UnRAID. I'm going to take the box apart again. I'm going to take out one of the GameX sticks that's not currently in use. So this one here, Dev2, NVMe 2N1 with that serial number. I'm going to remove that because it's currently not in use. I'm then going to bob in a new Samsung 990 Pro. I'm then going to bring up UnRAID. I'm then going to create a RAID 1 cache. So our cache pool will then have 2 NVMe devices in it. Once the RAID is rebuilt across those 2 devices, now at that point it's going to be unbalanced because we're going to have a 512 gig stick and a 4 terabyte stick, but the actual RAID Btrfs RAID on it is only going to be 512 gig. So when that RAID has completed that RAID 1 mirror, I'm going to shut down UnRAID. I'm going to remove the NVMe 3N1, that one. So I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to replace that with a Samsung one. I'm going to bring up UnRAID again, and then I'm going to add that new 4 terabyte into the RAID. I'm going to wait for that basically to rebuild, and then at that point we should have a 512 gig RAID mirrored one, and then after that I'm hoping that I can do a rebalance and an expansion, and eventually we will get to our final 4 terabyte cache for our first cache. And then the other 2 we can experiment with by creating another cache on them, or we can actually basically create individual disk pools for iSCSI. However, I'd really like to actually basically have iSCSI running across 2 mirror devices, but I think the way that iSCSI works, you can either do iSCSI by files, so you can create a file and that can be your LUN, but unfortunately in UnRAID you can't expand that LUN, or you can use the entire NVMe as a LUN, but again there's no resilience around that if that NVMe should fail. So if I'm going to go that route, then I really need to make sure that my backups are working and pucker. Okay, so that's 12 minutes of waffle. So I'm going to basically just stop our Docker container. And that Docker container just allows me to use fancy icons like in ESXi here. So I'll tell you what, we'll use the console, and I will just hit F12. We'll log in, and we'll shut down. So I can big X out of that. And let's just go to our Windows 11. And there we go. You can see the Samsung Magician now is all black, and it now says Samsung Authenticated. Although to be honest with you, that all looks a bit fuzzy to me, to be honest with you. But anyway, let's shut that down because we don't need that at the moment. So I'm going to shut that down as well. And when that virtual machine is stopped and when Windows 11 is stopped, let's just do a refresh to see whether or not has that happened. So that ESXi is stopped. We're just waiting for Windows 11 to stop. I'm going to shut down our UnRAID, and then I'm basically going to take it apart. I'm going to fettle around, and then I'll boot it back up again. And when I boot it back up again, we'll log back in and we'll have a little look at those changes that. Okay, so we're back. That was actually a lot quicker than I thought. Okay, so if we have a little look on screen now, we've still got our original cache device, which is the XPG X11 Pro 971. It just so happened I was so fortunate that the first GameX stick that I took out was the one that ended in serial number, put it on my desk, serial number 181. So that's here. And we bobbed in a new Samsung SSD 990 Pro 4 terabyte, which ends in serial number 691, which is this one here. Now, that has obviously basically caused the PCIe devices to jumble around. So I'm just going to show you this. I'm going to show you this in a later video, but I thought, well, okay, we'll wrap this in now and we'll come back if you've got any questions about it in the future. So we have a little look in tools and we have a little look at system devices. Then we've got lots of little exclamation marks basically that are telling us that all the PCI devices have changed device ID and they've changed IOMMU groups. So I'm just going to turn around and go acknowledge PCI changes. Yes, I'm going to acknowledge PCI changes. And of course, some of those changes, of course, were devices that were passed through to our Windows 11 VM. So I can actually basically show you how we actually pass through devices as well. So you might see there's a tick there and a little green thing that says this controller is bound to VFIO. Connected drives are not visible. So effectively what that means is that we've enabled that device to be able to pass it through to virtual machine. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing with all the other devices. So I'm going to have a look at the Samsung. I'm going to look at that device. And there'll be another one as well, which is also that one as well. So I'm going to bind 3 devices to VFIO at boot. So I'm going to say bind selected to VFIO. Now we're going to have to do a restart of UnRAID. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard and I'm basically just going to do restart. That's going to shut down the array. That's going to reboot. And then those devices will be ready to pass through to our virtual machine. Why am I wanting to pass them through to the virtual machine at this point? Well, there's 2 reasons. One, I'm keen to update the firmware, and I'm also basically keen to check that it is a genuine device, which is what it said in the old version of the Samsung Wizard Magician. And now in the later version, it actually basically turns around and says it's authenticated. So I'll just put this on pause and we'll come back when UnRAID has rebooted. Okay, so we're back after our very quick reboot. And I just wanted to show you that now we've got these lovely little green spots in front of our IMU group 15, 16 and 19, which include our NVMEs, these things. So these are all in PCI Passthrough now. So now that they're in PCI Passthrough, if we were in VMware world, we would be calling it VM Direct IO, but I think a lot of people these days with KVM UnRAID, we call it PCI Passthrough. ESXi is a little bit more picky on what devices that you can use in PCI Passthrough. I think it was originally developed so that we could pass through HBAs or host bus adapters, or if you're old like me, you used to call them SCSI controllers. SCSI controllers so that we could hang tape drives off the back of hosts. That's what I think it was primarily developed for. Over the years, of course, we've used it to present GPUs directly to VMs. Okay, so if we go to our VM, and if we edit our VM, we should now be able to scroll down to our other PCI devices. Now, UnRAID's quite nice actually in this respect, in that it actually has a little look at the PCI devices that are available for pass-through, and then basically you can just tick them and say update, and then we can actually basically start our VM. And let's just have a little look at the console. Now, 2 of the NVMe devices will already have the correct firmware. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do an RDP. To this, if it's started up, there we go. I'm just going to do an RDP only because the no VNC console here really is just, yeah, I don't know. I need to expand the resolution. Okay, so let's just have a little look at Device Manager that we did before in another part. In fact, actually, Samsung Magician has already basically popped up telling me that Update your firmware to the latest version for operation stability and performance optimization. So let's have a little look at disk drives. Yep, we've got 3 now. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have a little look at disk management. One of them is going to ask for a disk ID, disk 3, so I'm going to click OK. And then let's just give that a bit of formatting. Where is it? There we go. Disk 3, new simple volume. Next, assign H format. Formatting, new volume H. Okay. So let's just actually basically have a little look. So, okay, yeah, I was getting a bit confused then because I thought there was a firmware update for one we'd already done, but no. So 4B, so yeah, 691V is the one we've just installed. So I'm just actually going to basically click update and I'm going to click OK. So this is actually being done over PCI Passthrough from a virtual machine. I'm pretty sure Samsung probably doesn't recommend this. Yeah, you know, so I'm going to click Shutdown. As I said, only bought these devices the other day from Amazon. So, you know, if they get bricked or don't work, then they just get returned to Amazon. So no fear. Okay, so I'm just waiting for that to reboot. Let's just done that. Let's just start off console again. Failed to connect to server. Okay. Maybe just a bit. Failed to connect to server. Okay, maybe we're it's possible that we're just waiting for it to actually basically shut down and restart. Let's just try again. Failed to connect to server. Okay, let's just pause this a minute. It's interesting. We asked for a restart and it's just actually basically shut down. Anyway, okay, no worries. We can just start with VNC console again. And we can see it boot up. Obviously, we've still got that CD DVD inserted there, so that's why it's asking us to hit a key. Once that's booted there, then I'll do the same thing again. I'm going to log in with RDP, only that the resolution is just a bit better. Some might say it's not because I operate here at 4K. Some people complain that they can't actually basically see the writing on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to start off the Samsung Magician Wizard. As I said to you, this is a newer version now that's dropped, I think, in the last couple of days, as it's all black now, and they've changed things around again. So that NVMe device there, 691V, that is our new device that we've put in. It's firmware updated, and it says it's Samsung Authenticated. And we can do that with the others here. We can have a little look at that device. Samsung Authenticated 944Z, 41 degrees, 42, 41. Now, I did actually earlier, I did take a picture on my phone because I thought it was probably a good idea, really, with all these NVMEs to actually basically work out which ones they are. In terms of where they're actually installed in the NUC, and if I can find the right picture on my phone and have a little look at the serial number. So serial number 680B, I think it's 680B, so it's that one. So interestingly, the one with the higher temperature, 53, 57, 54, that's the one that's in the compute module. And the one we've just installed as well at 49 is also in the compute module. And the 4Z at 41 degrees C, that's the one that's actually basically on the base of the machine. That does really surprise me. You may have heard me mention before about the locations of them, and I really thought that the one that had the lowest temperature was the one that was actually basically on the base, not the one that's actually in the compute module. So I actually basically think that those NVMEs that are actually basically in that compute module that are next obviously to the CPU, they're at a much higher temperature. Might need to have a little look at the BIOS specifications or BIOS settings to maybe increase the fan speed. As I said, it's noisy here in the office. You won't be able to hear it because it's all noise cancelled, but it is noisy here in the office with all the fans going. So I'm not, you know, and I know that some people have got a real thing with noise. I see it in the forums all the time. Oh, the MSA2s are noisy. I want it in my TV set. Not here. There's so many fans whirring and whizzing and stuff. Okay, so we've done one update. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to need to think about the devices that I'm going to use, because I actually basically want to use 2 devices in Gen 3 in a mirror, and I want to use 2 devices in Gen 4 in a mirror. And I'll have to have a little look at the serial numbers to make sure that I actually pair the right ones, because I don't want an NVMe in a Gen 4 NVMe and a Gen 3 NVMe being in a cache, because the performance is going to be slightly different. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to shut down this Windows 11 machine. So I'm going to say shut down. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to wait for that to end. Then I'm going to remove the PCIe devices from, let's just do a refresh. What I'm wanting to get to is I want to free up one of those NVMEs so that we can actually basically add it to our cache and get that RAID 1 started. Okay, so that's stopped. So I'm just basically going to edit now, and I'm going to remove those from pass-through for the time being. I'm going to go back to tools. I'm going to go back to system devices, and I'm going to actually going to untick that, untick that, untick that,